Greetings and welcome to Corner Kick with Nick and Rick. I am Nick Prokop, and that is Rick Thomas. How you doing today, Rick?
I'm doing well. Just overcoming a mild sickness, cold, if you will, sinus thing, but I'm feeling good, man.
Definitely good weekend for the beautiful game that is. But before we go into reviewing the matches that we previewed for everybody on Thursday, there's some news information. Obviously, it's not the silly season yet in soccer, but there's some news out there on two big names about transfers and signing contracts, and I wanted to get into that with you first. First off, we'll lead off here with Raheem Sterling. Right now, there's some news out of Liverpool that he's been asking for a lot higher contract. That's been what it's offered right now. Yeah. As of right now, it's around £100,000 a week to Raheem Sterling, and he's turned that down. He's also kind of said he's not going to sign a contract this summer. I don't feel too good about that, Rick. What do you think?
You know what's going on. He's been in the news for a lot of off the field things right now as it relates to that contract. Honestly, I feel that this is more his agent than actually him. Granted, he is only 20 years old, and he's been saying a lot of things that a lot of 20-year-olds would be saying. There's a laughing gas incident that's been in the news lately, not helping his cause. For those who don't know, he was caught, I guess he was tweeting about inhaling laughing gas from a balloon or something. But, him being a part of a younger generation of millennials, if you will, he's going to have a lack of sense of humility.
True.
Especially with when money's at the table. And the agent's feeding into that, and he's feeding it to the young mind, and that's adding to the controversy because you figure the agents have to make money, whatever it costs. So if there's a team out there, which there are, I'm sure, that are, hey, I'll pay this much for your services, I'll pay Liverpool, to get you, then he's probably going to listen because the agent said, hey, I can make you a lot of money and get you probably to a more, I don't want to say more prestigious club, but a club that's at least competing for Champions League spots. So Raheem Sterling's performances on the field, obviously he scored that golazo against Newcastle. On the field, we all know he has talent. That's a give-in. It's just where's his head at,
That's true.
Not the agents.
And that's the thing. It seems like a young and dumb type of situation when it comes to the money. And honestly, here's my biggest deal on this is he probably looks at big clubs like Madrid being linked to him and Chelsea and Arsenal and all these other places, because obviously Liverpool hasn't had the cachet as of late to be up in the upper region and all that. But here's my thing on that. He's only 20, and he's not really he's established as an up-and-comer. He hasn't established as a big name consistently.
Right.
Like he's not an Eden Hazard. He's not obviously Cristiano Ronaldo type winger yet. Right. It's one of those things for me that I feel he needs to give himself maybe 3 to 4 more years or so at Liverpool alone, just to develop his game.
Right.
And for bringing him through their system, they deserve that at least at this stage in his career. At this young of an age, doing that type of putting yourself in that type of situation does not bode well, and can really hurt him later on in his career too, because they'll remember him as that guy with the attitude that didn't want to sign a contract at a team that helped him start his career. So he needs to really settle down and just get that going for himself there at Liverpool, just because they have another kid in the wings in Jordan Ibe if he doesn't work out or want to stay. So I think he really just needs to settle down, develop his game more, and become the next big thing. I know the English media want that too, because for the national team. So to me, it's just crazy. I don't.
I mean, would you compare him to like Ashley Young in terms of his mindset to the game? I mean, in terms of the younger players nowadays who just and it's off topic. It kind of mirrors society in general of younger athletes and in soccer at least, um, when you throw all this cash at them and they know they're going to
Yeah,
get cash because they're playing in the richest league in the world, they lose their humility, and really some of the older veteran players, they're making just as much money, if not more money, but there's nobody to grab them by the shoulder and say, hey kid, watch yourself.
that's true. That's true. And one other thing you just mentioned is it's the richest league. There's also, it seems, when it comes to the top English talent,
Mm-hmm.
an extra premium for those guys
Yeah.
when it comes to either the contract itself or the transfer fee itself. So that might be one of the reasons why the agent might be saying, well, you deserve this much more because of the English fee that is kind of also in place for English players.
Yeah.
Moving on to some other transfer type news but staying in EPL, there's been a lot of talk from Dortmund in Germany because of they're failing to get anywhere near Europe again. Mats Hummels and his career, and if he's going to leave, it sounds like he's getting close to the door because there's been a lot of news, and Fox Soccer themselves even came out. Usually, when it's like Daily Mail or any of those type of places, that I automatically just throw it out because it's not. It's usually just clickbait. But when a place like Fox Soccer is even giving some credence to it, it sounds like even more. And even him coming out a couple of weeks ago saying that he wanted to figure out his future by the end of the month. I like the deal, obviously, as a fan, but what do you think on him leaving Germany and going to England?
I tell you what, for Manchester United, I personally feel it's a risky buy due to his playing style.
Okay.
Granted, Manchester United have been known to get those type of brute defenders like Yapstam and Vidic, even back to the days of Steve Bruce. They've had defenders which might not have had a good amount of speed to their play. I question the move only because with him, the speed of the EPL might be a problem from him. Mm-hmm. But given Manchester United's current form and the way that Van Gaal has been, he has pieces around him that can make up for that lack of speed in his case. But again, when your last gasp option is to make risky challenges to compensate for that lack of speed, you might get your team in trouble. And, is he worth what? They're asking for 50.6 pounds or something?
Well, the last thing I checked was euros, and it was around 40 million euros.
Yeah.
Not sure what the conversion rate to pounds is, but that was about what I was hearing. There was also a little talk of maybe like a 50 million euro deal where it would count Hummels and Ilkay Gundogan, the midfielder, which I'm totally for because he's a very good holding type of midfielder. It's interesting that you brought up that his style might not fit. The only reason why I would really go for it, one biggest issue I have with center back is there's really not a long list of world-class center backs. Mm-hmm. Like if we sat here and did a striker list, we would probably take up a whole hour of strikers that you could kind of give a world-class title to of some sort. Yeah. Or forwards if we want to broaden it to forwards and count wingers also. But for me, when you look at the center back position, there's really in this day and age not a lot of world-class guys, and that's one of the reasons why guys like Terry that are getting older are still a premium defender. And also on that, the reason why a lot of better teams are using more of a team defensive style.
Yeah.
And just, it used to be, okay, well, we can handle these four guys in the back and maybe one defensive midfielder kind of tracking back and everybody else just push forward and attack. Well, that's kind of my issue on this. It's almost like, well, you have to pay that premium because there is no other guys out there. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I kind of get where you're going with that. I think he could adjust well to the game in England. Mm-hmm. He can be very physical when he needs to be. He showed that in the World Cup. He hasn't really, the issue I think a lot of people are seeing, and actually why I think his price dropped from last summer to this summer, is because this past season for Dortmund, he's really not shown the World Cup hummels. And I don't know if it's just because of the fact that they played the maximum amount of games in the World Cup and it really messed with him going into the season, or what's the deal? The amount of matches that Dortmund has played this year, being between Champions League, being between Pokal matches, between Bundesliga matches. Not sure if that's been a factor too, but I kind of understand where you're going with that, and part of the reasons why his price dropped. I would do the deal tomorrow. But moving on to reviewing the matches that we have decided last week to preview for everybody, let's go ahead and start off with this one just because it was a 0-0 draw. And it wasn't really – I watched the highlights of it, and there was really nothing fun about it. It was one of those 0-0 draws that you just look at and just go, why did I waste my time? But SKC RSL, you really have anything to review on that one for the fans? Because I really don't have much.
Well, both teams ran a 4-3-3, and so
I expected goals.
You would expect something, but as I mentioned last week, RSL's Sporting Park is haunted house for RSL still. They haven't won there. The only thing, if you want to take something out of it, is RSL. They've had three shutouts on the road at away venue, so their defense was good at least. But Graham Zusi's absence still shows because there's no service from Sporting KC. I personally would have expected Fehlhaber to step up and provide service, but I watched the match and some of his services were just abysmal, and he was showing frustration. And the cherry on top was Eichelpaar going out with a ruptured Achilles tendon. That didn't help.
Yeah, it didn't help
because he's part of their central defending that they need.
He's been key.
Yeah. But once again, Sidney Leroux's husband did not show up. But again, part of that is lack of service. Midfield. I mean, what did I say? What's his name in midfield? He plays for Honduras. He showed well.
Roger Espinosa?
Yeah, Espinosa showed well enough. He did what he could.
I like watching him. He and even Morales tried to show well too, but it just didn't work out too well for RSL. And like you said, it's a haunted stadium for them. Yeah. I expected more out of these teams because you figure with the talent that they have and both running 4-3-3s that you would run into a situation where you're getting a decent attack from both. But I was really shocked when I was watching this one because I couldn't believe it would end 0-0 beforehand. But it did. That's about it for that one. Let's move on to the derby that we first have from MLS that I thought was really fun to watch and couldn't believe it because my guy with the X Factor wins it at the end. But New York Red Bulls going to DC, pulling out a fantastic point, in my opinion, with a 2-2 draw. Perry Kitchen. Oh. What a fantastic guy.
Yes.
Fantastic guy.
He earned his call up, let's put it that way.
Yes.
And given that Klinsmann is taking a chance on him, which is good to see, that Klinsmann's obviously looking at quality MLS players. Those 2 goals, just the way that Kitchen put himself in position for those goals, it shows that he does have vision on that field, and his game is so elevated. Since last season, he's elevated his game, and when I watched that match too, just because again I'm a sucker for derbies, to come back against their rival, and you mentioned Lloyd Sam last week. He was the X factor, getting the tying goal. New York Red Bulls are unbeaten. They're unbeaten still, and they go into 3 straight home matches after this. So they've got mojo. For DC, it felt like a loss. It had to. Yeah. When you lose like that, or not a tie, let them come back and tie.
For me too, when you bring up that, it's almost like with Bill Hamid, who honestly, with the young crop of goalkeepers in MLS right now, there's not a lot. A a lot of our better young guys are not even in the country. Like the best one coming to mind right now is Cody Cropper, and he's in Southampton system. But Bill Hamid is kind of the young guy that's been touted as the best American in an MLS. He's the strongest goalkeeper in MLS, and he is. But the type of mental mistake he made on that Lloyd Sam goal is not acceptable in any shape or form when it comes to a goalkeeper. I don't know what was wrong with him, what happened in that moment, but that's something he needs to save.
And you know, people will question Klinsmann on the call-ups and what the heck does Klinsmann see in Hamid off of these silly mistakes? And you know, every goalkeeper is going to make mistakes, but yeah, you don't expect that from top level goalkeeper. I mean, you're not helping your cause in terms of your place in that goalkeeping pool for the national team. You know, one thing that and New York Red Bull fans might not want to admit, but it's that, you know, since Mike Petke left, you know, they've been playing well under
Jesse Marsh.
And it's one of those things where, okay, do you end your protest or whatever, or what? Because Jesse Marsh doesn't have Henry. He doesn't have hardly, you know, he doesn't have the pieces that Petke had. But as a team, they're getting results. And
that's true.
At the end of the day, at least to start the season out, they're getting results. At the end of the day, that's what you want.
And I mentioned the Lloyd Sam goal. It was really just a lucky strike. That was all to it. There was nothing special about it, but he had the wherewithal to have that awareness to get into that area and just kick the ball and see what you got. And that's what made that match so good for him, in the sense that he was smart enough to pick up that ball and kick it, whereas other guys might not have stepped up and kicked the ball in a timely manner, especially when you're thinking it's a free kick, the ball will bounce off, or the goalkeeper will clear it or catch it or something. The fact that he didn't stop and just kept going and got in place for that rebound on the first save by Hamid was just fantastic on him, and well deserved in my opinion. He played hard most of the match too. As I said, he's had a great start under Jesse Marsh. Like I said, during the Henry era, he was good. It was he never unleashed the best of himself, which I really think he's doing this year, which is great for our New York Red Bulls. Both teams at the top of the East still with the draw. They're now 10 and 9 points, I believe. But still, it was a fun game to watch. Like you said, you're a sucker for Derby, so am I. It's funny to have two of them so early. But, hey, they'll both be competing at the end of the year this year. Talking about teams competing and moving on to the other side of the country, I thought this was a very shocking result. And while we're talking about goalkeepers, too.
Pineda.
Los Angeles versus Seattle, 1-0. Jaime Pinedo is fantastic. I remember watching qualifying when he was even younger during 2010, watching him play for Panama and thinking, why isn't anybody trying to sign this guy? He's such a tenacious goalkeeper. He's not to me, watching him, he's not a powerful goalkeeper, but he's got that nice finesse to him as a goalkeeper. That he's got that he'll find the right positioning and he'll just knock that ball out of there. But he was so close to tying the franchise record in saves. He really stood on his head. He had 10 saves on this. And Mr. Hartman, who seems to own every MLS record in goalkeeping since he played for almost all of the years that MLS was around, Kevin Hartman, El Gato has 11 saves for the franchise record for LA. But still, he was fantastic. I was really shocked. Alan Gordon isn't the greatest striker in the world, but I've been really shocked with his form at the beginning of this year. He's really come off strong, and it's really helped with young guys like Zardes. They played more of a 4-2-3-1 in this match. Ishizaki actually played fairly well too. But before I get to my takes in Seattle, what are some more your takes on LA, Rick?
With Pinedo is part of a resurgence for at least for Panama. So he's part of that resurgence with that national team. And LA, Pinedo needed that match because I've been reading a lot of fans have been getting on him early on as to their slow start to the season. Some of his technical actions were not they were kind of iffy, but he stood his own, and their defense held their own also. Albeit, there was only one threat out there really for Seattle was Martins because Nagel was nowhere, and somebody like Gonzalez needed that match too, especially for his national team ambitions because he needed that. Gonzalez he's kind of fell by the wayside as far as a starting center back for the national team. But defensively, LA did what they had to do to shut down Seattle, who can be dangerous even though they were missing Bunsey. And again, it's a coaching derby, if you will, between Siggy and Bruce, going back to college years. So it's always intriguing to see what the two coaches of those teams will bring to a match like this, especially when you're missing your star players. How would they play that? And, it worked out well for Bruce.
That's true. I also wanted to point out, and I know Twitter was abuzz during the match for him too, but Christian Roldan, amazing job out in the wing for them for Seattle. I was really shocked by that because knowing Clint Dempsey was hurt, knowing that Pineda was hurt, their Mexican midfielder, I was very impressed, and I really think he could be a quality MLS midfielder. The guy that I'm thinking of, actually, that comes to mind when I think of watching Roldan, especially with his Chicago years, is Marco Papa. Guy like that is what I think this guy could turn into, which in the MLS standards is a really, really, really good winger.
Yeah.
I was he's only 19 and he's a U.S. kid too, so he could turn into something special. But that's definitely a quality guy that they have going for the future in Seattle. And it's funny, he was picked, I think, 15th overall in the MLS Super Draft, and there was so many pundits going, there was 14 guys better than him. There's no way there was 14 guys better than him. Hey, you draft by fits and needs and things like that, and if you didn't need a winger, then you're not going to draft him. So I think that's a good future for them at least. Still a lot of questions with Seattle. I don't know if it's just injuries or what's the deal, but they're not looking strong early, and I think it's going to affect them in the long run, honestly. And it's not good. It's not a good position to be in going forward in MLS.
Right. Especially for Siggy's sake.
Oh God, yes. You got anything else before we move on to our Serie A matchup?
No, that's it. It's it's going to be interesting to see how the league as a whole turns out, especially with call-ups and all. The rosters will be challenged. Let's put it that way.
That's true. We'll get to our Bundesliga one next. I'm going to just skip to the Serie A one now, just because I have my information up on my screen. But we have Napoli versus Fiorentina, which I said would be a strong matchup, especially since we had, at that time, 3 versus 6.
Yeah.
But it was a fantastic game, and at home, obviously, for Napoli, so that was a good setup for them. But they came out in that regular 4-2-3-1 that Rafa always puts out. But they finally got a win, and honestly, I think it was for themselves. Obviously, I think, as we talked last show, I think Rafa's out. I think he's done with Napoli. But Dries Mertens scoring early, and then having Mark Hamšík come on in the 64th and then scoring in the 71st. What a beautiful time for him, especially after struggling and having some injuries. Then 89th minute to get the one in the stab in the neck from Jose Maria Callejon, assisted by Lorenzo Insigne. It was just amazing. I'm happy with this result,
Well,
especially.
of
But
course, yeah, naturally.
naturally, I'm happy with this. But this pretty much guarantees Europa for Napoli, and because of the whole setup with Juve versus Lazio, like we mentioned last week in the Coppa Italia, it makes the sixth spot, which is right now Sampdoria, or Europa League spot, also because of the fact that the winner of that matchup would go to the Europa League, but because of the fact they're both going to be Champions League teams, that would get pushed down. What are your thoughts on this matchup, Rick?
Well, I mean, obviously the media silence has worked.
Yeah,
Some is dubbed as a retreat for psychological purposes. It seems to be working. Uh, it's kind of it's kind of a tale of different teams here in terms of momentum. Momentum is everything in sports, and this gives Napoli fuel for their upcoming Europa League matches with Wolfsburg. So, which they needed, and they after this match they continue to have their media silence so that they can have some focus. The goal scorers, like you said, Martins Hamsik and Callejon, they showed their worth and talent.
Exactly,
and that's what they're supposed to do. On the flip side, with Fiorentina, back-to-back losses of 3-0. In the Coppa Italia to Juve, now Napoli. Granted, they were missing key pieces also, like goalkeeper Ciprian Tatarusanu and midfielder David Pizarro and their forward Babacar. They'll have. Granted, they probably were sitting out because of their Europa League match in Kiev. So, but their coach Vincenzo Montella noted that their form is a concern, and that was Napoli. We were talking about Napoli's form was a concern. Now it's Fiorentina, and that's just how the game works. But both teams are carrying the tricolore of Italia, if you will, for Europa League play. So
that's true. That's true. And the key thing for Napoli, especially because I mentioned that they moved up into the fourth spot, that's an automatic bid for Europa League. And you mentioned their matchup coming soon with Wolfsburg. The one key part for them is really winning against Wolfsburg and moving on, because the Europa League winner also gets a automatic Champions League bid. So that could be an easy route for them into the Champions League, is if they go through that route and knock out everybody else in front of them. So if that's the case, that's going to knock down the Europa League spots in Italy even more, which is going to be fantastic. That will make a lot more Italian teams in Champions League and in Europe as a whole, which will be nice.
Right.
That's about it for me. Like I said, I think Rafa's still out. You bring up Montella, which is funny because I heard that your boy from Russia, Spalletti, is being rumored as the replacement for Rafa at Napoli. And I'm not really high on that. I think it's kind of another lame duck situation, essentially, especially with his bombing out of Russia and all that. But I really feel like Montella is the best Serie A manager, in my opinion. And if for some reason he wants to leave and come on over, that would be wonderful for Napoli. I would like to see that happen if he was able to leave, because he's easily one of the better ones in the league. Moving on over to the Bundesliga, we previewed Mönchengladbach and Borussia Dortmund. We obviously talked a little bit about Borussia Dortmund already with Mats Hummels. I was not shocked by this result, and this almost effectively destroyed all hopes that Dortmund had of coming back and trying to get into Europa League of some sort. They also basically set up themselves as a Champions League team.
Yeah.
And basically, I think that, like I said, Dortmund sealed their fate, and pretty much Mönchengladbach looks strong. And as I said, Cruz looked good out there for them. Even Fabian Johnson looked okay for the beginning of the start. They even scored within the first minute. So that's one of the things that really helps them out. Their left back, Oscar Wendt, scored early. Your thoughts, Rick?
Yeah, and I mentioned last week about how Mönchengladbach's Favre was looking to use this match as motivation. Obviously, the Champions League spot is motivation enough, and they showed that they were motivated. Dortmund, they also were vying for a Europa League spot, and I mean, Mönchengladbach, they are unbeaten in their last 7 matches. I mean, that's just a streak that you want to have to help go into the end of the season. Mm-hmm. So Mönchengladbach has been in form.
Yep.
And again, Dortmund, they have so many distractions going on. As you mentioned, not along with Hummels, but also Gundogan.
Yes.
And so, I mean, he's actually rumored to be going with Hummels to Man United, but Arsenal's talking about maybe sneaking in.
I think no matter what team, I could see them both leaving and going to English football next year. One other side note I want to make besides that really helped with Mönchengladbach's securing that third actual like automatic bid. Mm-hmm. That really helped securing that bid. They're now 2 points ahead of qualifying team Leverkusen, which is good. And they're both way ahead of Schalke, who will end up in Europa League. One little side note while we're talking Bundesliga, though, I want to give some proud props to Stuttgart. Your boys. You know, they've been ailing at the bottom of the league for a while now. And it really bothersome for a person like me that's watched a lot of Bundesliga soccer over the past decade or so. And seeing, I wouldn't call them natural powers, but typically strong teams in the Bundesliga, in Stuttgart, in Hamburg SV, HSV for short, which is what I usually call them anyways. It's really difficult watching them at the bottom because I know how passionate those fans are. And like I said, they are usually strong teams and pushing for European spots. So to see those teams struggling at the bottom, the good thing for them, though, is there is only about 6 or so matches left, and they're in striking distance. The last team 25, Stuttgart 26, and 12th spot is 33. So that's Hertha Berlin. So that means even Berlin's not even out of this yet. There's so much that could happen at that bottom of the table with the matches left. But I wanted to give your team props there before we moved on. Anything you want to mention about them before we go on to
well, I mean, they needed the last next 6 or so matches are against relegation back teams that are in that fight. So
win.
Buckle up. That's all I can say.
Yeah, buddy. All right, on to the game of the weekend. Manchester Derby, Manchester City versus Manchester United. I got to say, it was an insane game to watch. I know a lot of people around the world were watching it. But first 10 minutes, it looked like it was going to be all City, all match. You had the early goal by Aguero, and it was so bad out there. Manchester United didn't look like they could buy a pass. It felt like in the early goings that they were just kind of schlubbing the ball around and not really finding holes, not really running in the lanes, and it was just disappointing to watch because they were just trying to find areas and they just couldn't. And it was I just was like, come on, guys, just push. But Ashley Young, you mentioned him earlier when we were talking about Raheem Sterling. Yeah. He's been fantastic. He's so good. He's keeping a strong player like Angel Di Maria on the bench, even though Di Maria in his playing time in English soccer has been struggling at best, is the best way of putting it, honestly. Yeah. But he's been such an amazing player. Him, Ander Herrera, Valencia right back, even though I don't think he's a true right back or should be starting at right back. I was just flabbergasted how bad City's defense was too, with Vincent Kompany making stupid errors, getting injured basically on his yellow card tackle. And then also Yaya Toure. But before I go into him, I want you to get some of your opening reaction to it too.
Well, I mean, and I said I was a sucker for derbies, but I wasn't watching this one because I had issues going on with Stuttgart match around the same time. So that had me intrigued. But for what I've taken from that match, again, it showed that there's still a cloud over Manchester City. And you mentioned about the first half being pretty much City or dominant, if you will. But then the second half, Manchester United just came along and they bossed the game when they had to. I think part of that reason is whatever tactically Van Gaal, said or instructed, that showed on the field. And I mean, Manchester United, from what I last saw, they dominated in possession.
Yep.
They had like 57% or something to that effect. And it's one of those things where I'm putting it at Van Gaal is a genius.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that.
So right.
Well, I mean, I knew you say that as a fan, but I knew that going back to his Ajax years. I mean, that's how far back I remember him. Now you got to consider he inherited a team that was pretty much a mess left by Moyes.
Yeah.
And yet he's got this team in that position where they are in the table. Whereas Pellegrini was inherited stars from Mancini.
True.
And they are playing like they're playing. So that shows you what kind of mindset is in that locker room for Manchester United to be in a Champions League spot. Possibly could get for second, or, I mean, if Chelsea really, really slips up.
They're a point behind Arsenal.
I mean, so I put this on Van Gaal and getting the best out. I mean, Fellaini gets a goal.
Yeah. Amazing. I couldn't believe it. The goal actually I wanted to bring up next, and one of the reasons why I think they won was a massive difference. Yaya Toure has not been good for them this year, and that's been a huge difference. I feel like he's being selfish and lazy for the most part. That third goal, which was an offsides goal, you watch it again, Mata is offsides. They do that little blacked out line where it's like they show the area after the defender blacked off, and he's about to step into the blacked off area. Yeah. But yeah, they called it goal. I'm okay with that. Wouldn't have, obviously right now if they take it back, it's still 3-2 anyways. The United still gets 3 points. Yeah. But Yaya Toure is the reason why that goal ended up going in anyways, because he stopped tracking back. He was with Mata almost the whole way, and then he gave up and thought, oh, well, the next guy, Mangal, is going to get him. I don't need to worry about it. And to me, that's a huge mistake, especially when you're supposed to be a strong presence in the midfield, a good defensive / pushing forward, kind of that box-to-box type of guy we talk about, in the sense that he can powerhouse a guy on defense, but also he can set up goals, he can score goals. So if you're stopping and not supporting your back line, what do you think is going to happen? I just couldn't understand what he was doing on that sequence, knowing that Mata was eventually going to probably be open for a shot, and knowing how well informed Mata has been lately. So I couldn't believe it. I was a little shocked by that.
Yeah, because he's usually a workhorse, even when it's down. He's like you say, box to box, and I mean that's how he was when he was at Barca. So
yeah.
You
obviously know that from the Barca days anyway. So I was just disappointed with him on that. Quality 3 points, like you mentioned, they couldn't make a run. They're in the third spot firmly right now. They're 1 point behind Arsenal. I don't think either team is catching up with Chelsea. We might talk about this team again on Thursday just because they're playing Chelsea, and that's going to be a pretty marquee matchup coming down the stretch. We won't get too much into our talking when we talk about on Thursday. But to close out the show, I want to talk about what's going on tomorrow. Rick, what do we have tomorrow?
Again, a little classico, if you will. It's USA and Mexico.
Yep, and that's going to be a fun matchup to watch. It always is a fun matchup to watch. Even the friendlies, which we know they're just going to, both teams are going to play a lot of their local players. Obviously, not many of the European players are in town. United States only has 2. Mexico has 0 of theirs. Liga MX, though, does usually provide some strong players for the both national teams. Anyways, before we go into the U.S. squad and kind of break down what our starting lineups will likely be, looking at this Mexico squad, obviously Liga MX guys. Who are some of your X Factor guys to watch out for in Mexico? Because I got a couple guys in mind too.
Well, for Mexico?
Yes, for Mexico.
I'm gonna be intrigued to see what Cubo Torres does.
Okay.
Even though he hasn't started a single match for Chivas, but he scored like 5 goals between Copa matches and the league in Liga MX. So I want to see if his hunger will show in the match. I want to see what he's going to do. Obviously, there's a few Monterrey players there in the lineup. So whoever Herrera puts in the field that plays for Monterrey, that's going to be naturally going to catch my eye.
Well, I think your goalkeeper, Jonathan Orozco, will be one of those Monterrey players that they throw out there.
Yeah.
He's definitely stronger than the younger kid, Salcedo from Tijuana.
Right. To me, Orozco he's kind of been overlooked over the past few years, even when they were having successful years with Monterrey. So
I agree. A couple other guys to throw out there with you, Rick. I'm just looking at this. The guy that the biggest name to me, you mentioned Kubo obviously already, who's going to be in MLS soon. But the other one, they didn't call in a lot of forwards or midfielders, which makes me guess they're probably going to do more of a 5-3-2 or something like that to have like more of a defensive shape. But if they do start two strikers, I'd like to see your guy Cubo Torres next to Oribe Peralta because he's such a goal machine in the Liga MX and for Mexico themselves. When they play in like tournaments like the World Cup and this Gold Cup, I'm sure he's going to be up there playing with guys like Dos Santos and Guardado and Chicharito. Another name to want to watch out for, he's going to be kind of in that Dos Santos type role of that kind of like that playmaker that's in the top of the midfield that pushes forward, is Luis Chapo Montes.
Yeah.
Montes, he plays for Club Leon with one of our goalkeepers, William Yarbrough, but I like watching him. And actually, last time we had a friendly this time last year in Phoenix, he was definitely a big key to reason why Mexico won that match. He's definitely a fun playmaker to watch. And he's that good. He's a little bit older than some of the other guys, so he has that experience from the league. But he's that nice engine type of midfielder that's gonna serve up the ball to Peralta. I wouldn't be surprised if Peralta scores if Montes is the guy that set him up, honestly. The other guy I'm looking at this roster and I see right away is a guy that's been a starter in almost every single major match for them. I think he started every single World Cup match. I think he started every qualifying match leading up. It was Francisco Maza Rodriguez from Cruz Azul.
Yeah.
Maza has been one of those guys for them that's always been a good defender. He's not anything like you would see from Rafa Marquez or anything like that, but he's definitely a strong presence in the back. And if they, like I said, they do somewhat of a 5-3-2 and deal more defensive shape, he'll probably be that middle center back and be that guy that kind of generals the defense. Moving on, we'll talk a little bit about the players that we do have to pick from for USA. Really quick, the goalkeepers are Bill Hamid from DC United, Nick Romando RSL, William Yarbrough from Club Leon. Defenders, Ventura Alvarado from Club America, Matt Beasler from SKC, Brad Evans from the Sounders, Greg Garza from Tijuana, Omar Gonzalez from LA, Breck Shea from Orlando, DeAndre Yedlin from Tottenham, Kyle Beckerman RSL at midfield, Michael Bradley, Toronto FC, Joe Corona, Tijuana, Mixed Screwed, NYCFC, Miguel Ibarra from Minnesota United FC, Perry Kitchen being a late addition for DC United, Lee Wynn from the Revs. Forwards are Juana Goodell from the Revs, Julian Green from Hamburg, Jordan Morris, the Stanford kid, who, like I said last podcast, I believe Seattle needs to finally get him in the mold because he's definitely going to be a strong player for Seattle in the future. Chris Wondolowski, San Jose Earthquakes, and Justy Zardage, LA Galaxy. All right, Rick, who's your starting 11? Who do you have at goalkeeper here?
Oh man, I really, I don't make predictions, man. You know,
come on.
Because I'm not the coach. You know, it's like, I would think that Klinsmann would go with a 3-5-2 just because of the way he would want to neutralize Mexico's attack.
That's intriguing too, because they have a lot of good holding guys, and they have a couple of young guys that we know that he's trying to build on the wing back situation with DeAndre Yedlin and Breck Shea. But just to kind of appease the people, I'm going to do a 4-3-3 in my prediction. I would say Raimondo at the back, which I think is almost written in stone. I have a feeling it'll be Raimondo for the first 45, and I think we'll see William Yarbrough, since he knows Liga MX players. Yeah. I feel like he'll be the guy that's going to play in that second 45, just like he did against Switzerland, just to get – because I bet Klinsmann probably wants to see more of him. And I think that he wants to see what he knows against guys that he actually plays against too. Do you think Bill Hamid will get any chance at all to play in this matchup?
I would not think so, based off of – I know it's kind of messed up, but based off of that last performance.
That could be it too. I think he'll continue to get called in anyways, regardless of that performance. Another guy, especially if they do that formation that you're talking about, though, it'll be interesting to see if they actually throw out a guy early, like a guy like Ventura Alvarado. But like I said, I have a feeling it screams 4-3-3 with the players that they brought out. My back line, I have Yedlin, Gonzalez, Beasler, Shea. They could go someone else, but out of that lineup that the players they have, I only see Gonzalez and Beasler as being the starting center backs. I essentially feel like that they'll bring on Alvarado in the second half at some point. I'm assuming that's probably your thought too.
I would think so, just because again just to get him a cap, let alone play in a hostile environment. He knows how to play against
these guys.
Crowds. Yeah, so he adds that element to him.
Okay. Midfield, as I said, I have 4-3-3. So the three guys in the midfield, I have Beckerman, Bradley, Nix, mainly because I see those three out there, and I think maybe he wants to toy with seeing how those three play together at the same time. I think he already knows kind of what Bradley and Mix would do together, what Kyle and Mix would do together, what Kyle and what Mix and Michael would do together. I think he kind of would like to. I personally, I think it would be interesting, especially with the Gold Cup coming up, seeing what those three could do all on the field at the same time. Because if they fail miserably, then going forward in the matches that matter, that you don't want to throw those three out there together. But this is, to me, a perfect litmus test to do something like this, to see these three together at the same time, just to see what they can do as a team together in that pyramid of a midfield. When I say pyramid, I think it's kind of like a withdrawn pyramid in the sense that I feel like the point is Beckerman towards the back line, and then I feel like Mix and Bradley are those other 2 points towards the forwards. As of right now, my guess for the forwards, it's probably way off, but I'm just throwing a guess out there in the sense that I think that Joe Corona will get the start, just because he knows the Liga MX players. I'm thinking Miguel Ibarra on the left. I could be wrong. He could throw Juan Agudelo on the left or Justy Zardes, just to see how they play out on the left. Obviously, he played Zardes against Denmark on the right, which was interesting, especially when I felt like he plays a little bit better on the left. But I could see that maybe also. And then Chris Wondolowski is the striker. I think he's going to – if he plays two strikers, no matter what, I think Wando is going to be out there for the starting 11 just because he's the most seasoned out of all these strikers that they brought in. And It just makes sense to me. Out of all these players, who's the player you want to see the most, and who do you think can be an X factor for USA to win?
Well, my whole question with the U.S. side is where the goal is going to come from.
Okay. I see that.
I mean, where the goal is going to come from? I mean, when you look at the forwards, they don't have that one. Well, Zardes is probably the biggest guy.
Yeah.
Wando can be physical, but I mean, who's going to serve? Well, you got a good midfield that can serve it to him, but will they be able to finish? That we'll see. But the X factor to me will be Bradley.
Okay.
How he connects with that defensive midfield. I think Bradley, like you mentioned in that triad of midfielders, he would be the one to go forward. even though
Okay.
he can go box to box, but he won't have to go box
Yeah.
to box because Mix and Kyle are back there. So
True.
how Bradley links up, and if need be, he can go forward to act as a floating striker, if you will.
Well,
Especially if things don't go well
yeah.
offensively with the two.
And we always, whenever we always talk Bradley here, we always talk about how Bradley is always more of a number 8 and not a number 10 or a number 6.
Yeah.
In the sense that he's not a defensive guy, he's not a creative guy. He's more, like we said, the box-to-box guy. He can be creative, but he's more of a deep lying type of playmaker like the 8 is, in the sense that he likes to push forward from the back. And that's one of the reasons why I think maybe like a 3-man midfield like that, he kind of feel like, okay, well, I can kind of be my guy. In a way, I feel like Mix and Beckerman would be the guys handling the midfield, where Bradley could just be a free-floating guy. Just let him do his thing, go wherever he wants to go. I think that helps with his confidence a lot. And honestly, I think that will be, like you said, an X factor for the team. The guy for me, we mentioned him when we were talking a little bit about LA, Omar Gonzalez.
Yeah.
He's strong on defense for this team. There's not a lot of center backs. There's only 3, in my opinion, that are true center backs on this team. And we all know that Matt Beasler is a steady center back, good passer type of player. I just want to make sure that we have the old Omar that was well before World Cup, that was playing quality. Even during World Cup qualifying, he was strong.
Yeah.
He's that kind of guy that there's always going to be like maybe one mental lapse game, which is not a good thing, obviously, but he's still worthy of giving a chance to, because his talent shows. Yeah. He's a strong physical center back, and he needs to be that guy, especially if they're going to be marking Peralta, who is prolific. So you're going to need to be that guy in the back line that's going to be strong, hold up for the team, and not waver. The guy I really want to watch, he has 2 goals so far for USA, and I want to see how he kind of grows into that role on the left side, especially how you mentioned how you think kind of like a 3-5-2 if he's going to play more of a wingback in Breck Shea. He's been playing all right at left back for Orlando City.
Yeah.
He's been doing with Orlando City. He's been quality on runs and kind of linking up with Kaká. He missed actually a golden opportunity in their last match this past Sunday on a run that he could have made, but I think he was a little timid, a little hesitant to make the run. I think that's one of the things he's learning by playing the position, and to me, I really want to see him succeed. He doesn't have a lot of he has a lot of haters in the U.S. men's fans. Yeah. But I think it's one of those things that it's the reason why people don't like him is because they see his potential, but he doesn't live up to it. And that's one of the things for me. If he can really win over this role in the side, especially if they kind of do that dueling wingback thing where they have Gedlin on the right and Shea on the left and have it kind of as a 3-5-2 flowing defense, that would be perfect in the future for those 2 guys. They're both speedy. They both can strike really well. Gedlin can serve fairly well. They both, but it's funny, they both have the issue of not being strong defensively. So that'll be interesting going forward.
Right.
8:30 kickoff, Fox Sports 1. I'm definitely watching. I don't know if I'm going to go anywhere or not to watch it, just because it's a Wednesday evening and it's not anything big. It's just a friendly, but it's U.S.-Mexico. No matter what, regardless of how big of a matchup it is, it's still fun to watch. I encourage people to go either to their local AO bars, or if they know some friends that want to get together and watch this. It's going to be a good time. What I think I'm going to look at the most, other than the teams in the game itself, is the crowd. I want to see if it's going to be pro Mexico, if it's going to be pro United States, because they're right in San Antonio, Texas, which that's close enough to the border for a lot of Mexican fans to come up, or Texans that are Mexican, that are a Mexican heritage, that are going to the match itself to play, but to watch them play. Who do you think is going to win this?
I actually got it as a draw.
Draw. I tend to go towards your way too with the draw. I think Peralta's at least going to get a brace against this defense. I don't think they're going to be strong enough. So I think it's probably going to be around 2-2. I would like to see goals from Ibarra if he gets on there at all. And honestly, the guy I really want to score because he should have scored against Switzerland was Bradley.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I would like to see Bradley score one finally because there was a couple misses that he
Mm,
was right on goal, and if he just taps it, it's in.
yeah.
Wando, if he scores, I'd love it too, just because every time he scores, even though it doesn't make up for his Belgian miss, it's
Oh
still.
gosh, yeah.
I'm mad still. I'm still mad, but at least it kind of lessens it slightly, not a lot, but slightly every time he scores. But I don't expect him to, but we'll see what happens. Any other thoughts you have for this match before we close out?
I think one thing you have to look out is the state of the pitch because there has been talks of Mexico probably was playing mind games, saying that they might not want to play tomorrow because the pitch wasn't. But I think that's just mind games. They're trying to play.
It's Miguel Herrera trying to get in everyone's head.
I think the match is obviously from a supporter standpoint, it's about winning against your rival. But as these two coaches, it's about discovering what they have. With Klinsmann, discovering what MLS talent he has to work with, and then for Herrera, discovering who he's got to discover who's going to be for his Gold Cup team and also his Copa America team. So they're both in the situation where they have to see what they have to work with.
And you mentioned the Copa America and the Gold Cup down in Chile with the Copa America. I really think that Mexico especially will probably send more of a B team type of situation. Like the guys, like I mentioned, Montez, guys like that are probably playing for a chance to be on that more of the B team that will go to Copa America. Because I don't think he's going to take the same team to both tournaments. If he does, that's not a good idea. And I really think that he's going to ruin his side if they do that. Copa America.
Also they have the under-20 World Cup too.
Oh yeah.
So
that's a lot to be thinking about. I really think Mexico's going to take the A team to Gold Cup because we all know with the playoff scenario and all that with Mexico, with USA, I mean, winning the last one, Mexico needs to win this one to even have a chance to go to Confederations Cup because the Confed Cup bid will be decided on the winner between this one and the last one, which was USA in 2011, I believe.
Yes.
Or no, 2013.
Yeah.
Yes, God, I was way off on that one. Because Mexico won in 2011, which put them in the 2013 Gold Cup. Confed Cup. I'm way off on my cups today. But I really think they're going to bring an A squad to the Gold Cup, mainly because they need that chance to get into the Confed Cup, and I think Miguel Herrera knows that. That's pretty much my final thoughts. Rick, we'll be back on Thursday, and we'll be talking about this match we just previewed. We will review also the Champions League matches in Europe that have been going on today and tomorrow's matches. So if you're listening to this thinking we'll be doing that, we'll wait until Thursday's show for that. And then once we're done reviewing that, we will actually preview some big matchups for this coming weekend in America and abroad. Any final thoughts, Rick?
Only thoughts I have are for our audience are to invest in a beautiful game any way you can. League, a national team, invest.
All right.
Plenty to watch out there, especially in the domestic leagues here in the States.
Thank you for listening to Corner Kick with Nick and Rick. For Rick Thomas, I'm Nick Prokop. Till we meet again.
Ciao.